The marker hits the floor and slides to a stop at her feet. 180 people are laughing. At her uniform, at her cart, at the mops still wet in the bucket behind her. Even the maintenance staff, the professor says, grinning at the 12-foot equation behind him. 2 minutes. Solve it, and I'll marry you on the spot. He doesn't know her name. He's worked 30 feet from her for 10 years, and he doesn't know her name. But there's a folder hidden under her cleaning cart. 92 pages, 6 proofs. And one of them ends with the exact equation glowing on that screen. She bends down, picks up the marker. A Princeton professor at the panel table goes very still. A grad student in the front row whispers, "Oh no." The janitor walks toward the stage, and 40,000 people are about to watch a man's career end in real time. She is mopping the floor when she solves it. Not today's problem. Not the one that will change everything in approximately 11 hours and 43 minutes. A different one. Smaller. Left on a whiteboard by people who forgot she exists. The building is empty in the way that only happens before dawn. That specific silence where the heating vents sound loud, and your own footsteps feel like an intrusion. Dara Weston pushes her cart around the corner into the faculty conference room and stops. The whiteboard is covered. Someone's seminar from yesterday afternoon. 14 lines of mathematics abandoned mid-thought. The marker dried out somewhere around line 9. Dara looks at it the way most people look at a menu. Casual, already knowing what she wants. She sees the error on line 2. She doesn't react. That's the thing nobody would understand if they were watching. And nobody is watching, that's the whole point. No sharp intake of breath. No little sound of recognition. Just a slight tilt of her head, the way you tilt your head when you spot a typo in a text message. She picks up the eraser cloth from her cart, puts it back, picks up a dry erase marker instead. And then she writes fast. Clean, no hesitation, no crossing out, no going back to check. 11 seconds? Maybe 12. The missing 4 lines appear on the board, in her handwriting. Small, tight, perfectly aligned. The proof closes like a door clicking into a locked position. She caps the marker, looks at it for exactly 3 seconds, then erases all of it. Her 4 lines, there's first, and there's the line, whiteboard. Like the whole thing never happened. She picks up the mop, keeps going. This is Tuesday, which means this is the 3rd time this week. Her name is Dara Weston. She is 30 years old. She has worked the overnight cleaning shift at Harvard's Mathematics and Sciences building for 10 years, 2 months, and 16 days. She is 5'4", with the posture of someone who has spent a decade pushing a cart that is slightly too tall for her frame. Her uniform is dark green, 2 sizes too big. Her glasses are old. The left hinge has a hairline crack she keeps meaning to fix, and never does because there is always something more urgent. Under the bottom shelf of her cleaning cart, there is a folder, labeled in pencil, Inventory Q3. It is not an inventory. Inside are 92 pages of mathematics that no one at Harvard knows she has written. 6 complete proofs, 3 of which directly resolve open problems cited in the last decade of published work by the most arrogant man in the building. She doesn't think about the folder much during her shifts. She doesn't need to. It's already finished, in the sense that a song you've been humming all day is finished. It lives somewhere between memory and muscle. The thinking happened at her kitchen table, at 2 a.m., with bad coffee and the specific quiet that settles over an apartment after a 22-year-old finally goes to sleep. She worked in this building long enough to know that the mathematics lives everywhere here, on whiteboards, on napkins, in trash cans, on the backs of printed emails that people crumple without reading the second side. She has mopped around it for a decade. She has learned to see it the way you learn to see anything you live close to for long enough. Clearly, without ceremony, for exactly what it is. Dara sits on an overturned bucket, not because there's nowhere else to sit, but because the bucket is exactly the right height. She dials. 3 rings. You're sleeping. No, Caleb. I'm resting my eyes. Your eyes have been resting for 7 hours. Get up. Eat something real. I checked your bank account last night. A long pause. The pause of a 22-year-old doing rapid calculations about what checking the bank account might reveal. Define real. Something that requires a plate. That's a very narrow definition of Caleb. Yes, ma'am. She smiles. Not a big smile. The small one she reserves for him. The one she does when he's not looking. Or when he can't see her, which is most of the time now. He's in Boston, she's in Cambridge. 40 minutes on the T, which means 40 minutes and 1,000 miles. She doesn't tell him about the colloquium today. She never tells him about the things she notices on the third floor. In 10 years, she has never told him about the folder. "You okay?" he says, and he means it the way he always means it, like he's checking on her, which he has been doing since he was 13, because that's what happens when you grow up fast. You start looking in directions that used to be someone else's job. "I'm good," she says. "Go eat breakfast. I love you, D. I love you. Real breakfast. I'm checking your app." She hangs up, sits for another moment. In her wallet, behind her transit card and a folded receipt she keeps meaning to throw away, there are two things. A photograph of her mother taken the summer of 2015, laughing at something off camera, head thrown back, one hand raised like she's about to make a point. And a piece of paper, folded, still crisp at the creases, never unfolded a second time. MIT acceptance letter. She got it at 19. She unfolded it exactly once the morning it arrived. Then she folded it back up, and 7 months later, she put it in her wallet next to her mother's photograph. She doesn't know why she still carries it. Maybe as a reminder. Maybe as a promise. Maybe it's just one of those things you carry so long it stops being a symbol and becomes just a thing you carry. The way certain people carry a stone they picked up on a good day. Not because the stone does anything. Because the day was real, and this is the evidence. She put a phone in her pocket, picks up the mop. Third floor first. Always third floor first. Here is what Dara Weston knows about Dr. Preston Galvey. He takes his coffee black and leaves the empty cup on top of the trash can instead of in it. He burns through whiteboard markers faster than anyone else on the floor, pressing hard, like he's trying to leave an impression on the surface itself. He has never once held the elevator. He walks down the hallway the way certain men walk. Like the hallway exists because they need it to. Like the floor is doing them a favor. She has worked 6 feet from him regularly for 10 years. He does not know her name. She stopped being angry about this somewhere around year 3. It's just a fact. A data point. A thing that is true about this building and this floor and this particular category of person that she moves around. Literally every morning. She mops around them like furniture. She is invisible in the way that is incredibly specific to certain kinds of women in certain kinds of buildings. Not the dramatic invisible of being talked over. The deeper kind, where you could stand directly in someone's path and they would veer around you without registering that they veered. Without registering you at all. She has gotten very good at it. She has also gotten very good at mathematics, mostly in spite of it. Here is what Dara Weston knows about the Galvey boundary. Technically, it's called the Galvey-Hartman integral identity, but everyone in the department calls it the Galvey boundary because Galvey is the one who shows up to all the conferences. I published it 9 years ago in his doctoral thesis. He was 26. It made him famous in the specific, narrow way that pure mathematics makes people famous. Invisible to everyone except pure mathematicians, who regard you with a reverence that is frankly disproportionate. The boundary is a complex integral. Elegant on its surface. Genuinely interesting, she'll give him that. The supposed problem, the thing Galvey has built 9 years of lectures and 2 textbooks and his entire scholarly identity around, is that it cannot be solved in closed form. Cannot be solved. Intractable. Possible. These are his words, from 3 different papers and at least 1 podcast interview she's listened to once, on her phone, walking to the T at 6 a.m., trying not to laugh out loud on the platform. She solved it 6 months ago, at her kitchen table, starting from a piece of trash. Here is how it happened. The folder did not begin with the Galvey boundary. It began 4 years earlier, when Dara first started pulling discarded preprints from the 3rd floor recycling bins. Not stealing. The papers were thrown away. What ended up in her cart? She read them at home, the way some people read mystery novels on the commute. Quickly, with the particular pleasure of following a puzzle that someone else had started, and she was completing in her head before she reached the end. The first proof she wrote herself was in response to a paper she found in the recycling outside the faculty lounge in November 3 years ago. The author had gotten 3/4 of the way to a solution and then taken a left turn into a dead end. She could see exactly where he went wrong. She wrote the correction on the back of a shift schedule. Then she wrote what came after the correction. Then the page ran out and she used the inside of a manila envelope. And by the time she was done, it was 3 a.m., and she had 4 pages of mathematics that resolved an open problem she had read about but never expected to touch. She folded the pages, put them in the folder, labeled the folder Inventory Q3 because nobody looks at inventory folders, and went to bed. That was the beginning. The folder grew the way things grow when you're not watching. Slowly, consistently, over months. A page here, half a page there. 2 new proofs the winter Caleb had his appendix out, and she spent 4 nights in a hospital waiting room, with nothing but bad coffee and a legal pad, and her own mind for company. 1 proof over 6 weeks last spring, built in fragments between shifts, the way you build anything when you only have 10 minutes at a time. The Galvey boundary was always in the background, not as a project, more as a landmark, a thing she could see from where she was standing. Every time a new paper on it appeared in the 3rd floor recycling, and papers appeared regularly, because Galvey generated papers as though some men generate opinions continuously and with great confidence. She read it, added a note to the folder, thought about it on the walk home. Then, 8 months before the colloquium, something shifted. She read a preprint Galvey had left on his desk, visible through the open door, and noticed that his approach had not changed in 4 years. Not in method, not in angle. He was still asking the same question the same way, and getting the same non-answer, and writing papers about why the non-answer was inevitable. She started paying closer attention. And 2 months later, she found the napkin. The napkin is near the trash. White, restaurant quality. The thick kind, his handwriting. She recognizes it from the whiteboards. Loose, fast, slanting right. 3 lines of mathematics. Then a cross out. A rewrite. Then another cross out. Then a rewrite. The same one. The exact same mistake. Crossed out and rewritten in the same wrong direction. Which means he saw the error. He found it, considered it, and chose the same answer anyway. Not because he didn't understand. Because the right answer required dismantling something he'd already built on top of it. Because the wrong answer had become load-bearing. She knows that feeling, not the mistake specifically. The feeling of looking at something so long that your brain starts defending its own error. She has fought that feeling deliberately, consciously, every time she sat down with the folder. She has a habit of writing at the top of every page, check line 3, before you go further. It is a reminder she started leaving herself in year 1. It has saved her from herself more times than she can count. She takes the napkin, goes home, sits at her kitchen table. Caleb is asleep. A city outside the window is doing the 11 p.m. version of quiet, which is not actual quiet, but is close enough. She puts the napkin on the table, puts the folder next to it, opens both. She is not planning to solve it tonight, she's planning to look. But looking is, for her, a door. And once she walks through a door, she keeps walking. At 3 a.m., she has the proof, complete, closed form, clean as a lock clicking shut. She reads it back twice to make sure she hasn't made the mistake Galvey made. The mistake seating to see it. She checks line 3. She checks it again. It holds. She folds the napkin 1, puts it in the folder, puts the folder back on the shelf, goes to bed for 2 hours, gets up, goes to work, tells no one. This is the version of her life she has chosen. Not because she doesn't know what the folder is worth. She knows exactly what it's worth. But the folder is safe where it is. And safe is something she has learned to value in ways she didn't when she was 19 and had not yet learned what the alternatives feel like. There is something Dara Weston does not know about Theo Brandt. She knows his face. Young, a little rumpled, the look of someone who sleeps on his office couch more than he sleeps at home. She has mopped around his desk for 2 years. He always leaves a half-finished coffee that she moves aside to clean under and carefully puts back in exactly the same position. She has appreciated that about him without knowing his name, the putting back of things. What she doesn't know is that 14 months ago, Theo Brandt opened the supply closet on the 3rd floor during a routine fire safety inspection and found the folder on the bottom shelf of her cart. He almost didn't open it. Almost checked the closet off his list and moved on. But the label said Inventory Q3 and something about the way it was placed there, carefully, specifically, like it had been set rather than stored, made him pick it up. He opened it. He read the first page standing in the supply closet doorway. Then he went inside and sat down on the floor and read all 92 pages. It took him 4 hours. When he came out, he was not the same person who had gone in, not dramatically. Not in any way visible from the outside. but something had rearranged itself. The way a room rearranges itself when someone moves one piece of furniture and suddenly the proportions are different and you can't remember what it looked like before. I took photographs of every page, every equation, every margin note. He labeled the files, encrypted the drive, went back to his desk, and stared at his own research for a long time. He went back to the closet the following week, when a new page had appeared, and the week after that. For 14 months, he has been the only person at Harvard, other than Dara herself, who knows what is in the folder. He has not told anyone. He told himself he was protecting it, that if Galvey knew, Galvey would find a way to absorb it, redirect it, make it his own before she could make it hers. He ceased waiting for the right moment, that there would be a right moment, that he would know it when it came. He was still waiting at 11 p.m. last night, when Galvey sent him an email. 4. Tighten the upper bound on the imaginary axis. Minor adjustment. Theo read the email, sat still for 3 minutes. Opened a reply window. Typed a response. Typed another. Delete that one, too. Typed understood, and closed the laptop, and lay down on his office couch and looked at the ceiling until sometime after 2 a.m., thinking about the folder and then the photographs on his encrypted drive, and the woman who put things back exactly where she found them. At 6 a.m., Dara Weston pushes her cart through the service entrance of Hall G. The room is large, tiered stage at the front, projection screen already lit. The morning colloquium doesn't start for 3 hours, but someone has been here already. The slides are loaded. The first one is up. The Galvey boundary. White text on black. A integral expanded below it. 12 feet tall. Dara stops. She reads it top to bottom, quickly. Then again, slower, at the part that's snagged. She gets to line 4. There is a constraint that was not in the 2018 published paper. She knows the 2018 paper the way some people know songs. Not from studying it formally, but from returning to it over 3 years, whenever she needed something familiar to think against. A bound on the imaginary axis. 4 characters. Looks almost like a notational preference. But she knows what those 4 characters do to the approach she built at her kitchen table 6 months ago. They close a specific door. The polar transformation, contour deformation, the hidden symmetry she found at 3 a.m., all of it sealed off by 4 characters that didn't exist in the published version. Her hand tightens on the cart handle. She knows who added them, and she knows why. She looks at the slide for another moment. Then she pushes the cart forward and starts her morning rounds, because the floors don't mop themselves, and she says 2.5 hours before this room fills with poems. She works methodically, corner to center, and the thing she doesn't let herself think about directly, she thinks about entirely without stopping for the full 2 hours. At 7:15 a.m., she is in the 3rd floor corridor, finishing her last hallway, when she hears the stairwell door. Galvey, already on his phone, one hand gesturing at the air. Dark suit, no tie, moving with the confidence of a man who has arranged the next several hours to his exact specifications. He walks down the hallway toward her. She steps to the side. The small practiced movement of someone who has learned to navigate around people who don't navigate around her. He doesn't slow down, doesn't look up, walks through the space she had just been standing in, and continues to his office. Doesn't close the door. Through the open doorway she can hear him. Something about the live stream setup. Something about the journalist from the Tribune. Something about, and this is the phrase that stays with her, the elegance of a clean defeat. She keeps walking. Down the corridor, around the corner, to the elevator. She stands in the elevator and watches the numbers change. She thinks about Caleb. She thinks about whether he actually ate breakfast. She thinks about her mother. She thinks, if she could see you right now, what would she see? The elevator opens. She pushes her cart out, and the answer she doesn't let herself finish echoes around the elevator shaft as the doors close behind her. At 8:30 a.m., break time, she sits on her overturned bucket in the supply closet and takes the folder out from under the shelf. She doesn't read it. She knows it. She just holds it for a moment, the way you hold a letter you've memorized. 92 pages. 6 proofs. The Galvey boundary on the last 30 pages, complete closed form, arrived at by a route that the constraint on slide 4 has now blocked. But the constraint is not in the 2018 paper. And a bet, if there is a bet, would reference the work as published. She sits with that fact. She is not planning to go in there. She wants to be clear with herself about that. She is not that person. She has spent 10 years specifically not being that person. She has built a life that works, that functions, that keeps Caleb fed and housed and on track, that keeps the bills paid, that keeps everything running at the level of fine, which is not happiness but is stable, and stability is not nothing. She puts the folder back, picks up her thermos, drinks cold coffee, and thinks about the therapy, not the public failure, not at the humiliation, not Galvy's face or the crowd or the camera. The real fear is being seen, and then dismissed. Because she can survive invisibility. She has been surviving it for 10 years. She knows every texture of it. What she doesn't know how to survive is the other thing. The version where she exists, briefly, in front of people who then decide she doesn't count. She has seen that happen. To her mother twice in hospital waiting rooms, being talked over by doctors who looked at her chart before they looked at her face. The girl she tutored at MIT for 6 months. Brilliant, who raised her hand in a seminar and was spoken over 3 times before she stopped raising it. Invisible is one kind of wound. Visible and dismissed is a different wound entirely. And she does not have a name for how she would carry it. She closes her eyes. Thinks about Caleb's voice this morning. You okay? The way he has been asking that since he was 13. The weight he carries that he learned from watching her carry weight. The boy who grew up knowing his sister was smart. Knowing it the way you know something you can't quite name. And who never asked why that smartness lived in a folder under a supply cart. Because he understood on some wordless level that some things are not yet safe to say out loud. And then she thinks about something else. She thinks about the girl. There is a young woman who audits lectures in this building. Dara has seen her twice in the 3rd floor corridors. Young, black, precise. The kind of presence that takes up exactly the amount of space it needs to, and not 1 inch more. Because somewhere along the way she learned that taking up space has a cost. The looks of someone who has been told, by nothing in particular and everything in general, that this room was not built with her in mind. Ara knows that look. She has worn it. She wore it at MIT before she had to leave. She wore it in this building for the first 3 years before she learned to make herself comfortable in the invisibility instead. She picks up the folder, holds it, puts it back under the shelf, then picks it back up. At 8:58 a.m., she is standing in the service corridor outside Hall G. She has been standing here for 4 minutes. She can hear the room filling, the murmur of 180 people settling into seats. She can hear Galvy's voice through the closed doors. Not words yet, just the cadence of a man who has arranged everything to his specifications and is very pleased about it. And the door opens just slightly as a latecomer slips through, and she hears him. In fact, I'm feeling generous this morning. Anyone who solves it in 2 minutes, I'll resign my chair, hand over my office keys. Laughter building. And because I am above all a man of my word, more laughter. The comfortable, relaxed laughter of a crowd that knows they're watching a performance with a predetermined ending. I mean anyone. The undergrad auditing in the back, the visiting scholar, the maintenance staff. Something slides across the floor of the service corridor. She looks down. A marker. It bounced and slid, and now it's lying 3 feet from where she's standing. And the laughter inside has a different texture now, the kind that has an edge in it, and she knows without seeing it exactly what just happened. She looks at the marker. She thinks, don't. You don't have to. And then she thinks about the girl in the back row, head down, shoulders in, trying to fit inside the smallest possible version of herself. And Dara Weston, 30 years old, 10 years invisible, 6 proofs in a folder she is still holding under her arm, bends down and picks up the marker. She stands up. She checks herself the way you check before stepping onto ice. She is not angry. She knows what anger feels like. This isn't it. Anger would make this about him. And this is not about him. She looks down the Cervicus corridor toward the stage. She looks at the girl in the back row through the gap in the door. And something settles. Not rage. Not ambition. Something quieter and more durable. The feeling of a woman who has been carrying something for 10 years and has just decided. Not dramatically, not with a speech, just practically, like choosing a different route because the old one is finished. That today is the day she sets it down. She steps through the door. Into Hall G, she walks down the side aisle, 180 people, a 12-foot screen. A man with a stopwatch who does not yet know that this morning is about to become the thing people tell for years. She walks to the panel table at the front, stops beside Dr. Iris Tamblyn, speaks quietly. Just for her. Professor Tamblyn, may I borrow the floor? 2 minutes. Dr. Tamblyn looks at her. A long look, the kind that measures something that is not credentials and not rank. The assessment of a woman who has spent 40 years in rooms not designed for her and has learned to recognize something in another woman's face that most people can't see at all. 3 seconds. Then Dr. Tamblyn nods once. By all means, Miss Weston. Phones come up across the audience. Galvey turns around, laughs out loud. Oh, this is, by all means, by all means. He clicks the stopwatch with a flourish. 2 minutes. Starting, Dara walks past him. She does not take the marker he holds out. She walks to the tray at the base of the whiteboard and picks up a fresh one, caps it, turns to face the board. 12 feet of mathematics. 9 years of a man's career. A door that was sealed this morning specifically to keep her out. She looks at it, and she begins to read. Not the answer, not yet. Top to bottom, the way you walk a room before you start cleaning it. Understanding what you're actually dealing with before you decide where to begin. Behind her, the stopwatch ticks. Behind her, 180 people hold something that is not quite breath. On the back row, a girl who was trying to be invisible has lifted her head, and Dara Weston stands at the board, reads, and prepares to begin. She stands at the board for 15 seconds without moving, just reads. The room doesn't know what to do with that. People came expecting a punchline. The janitor picks up the marker, makes a few squiggles. Galvey says time's up. Everyone laughs. The story ends the way these scene stories always end. That was the script. That was the shape of the morning everyone's had silently agreed to before they sat down. Except she isn't following the script. She is reading, head slightly tilted. Marker capped, eyes moving line by line from the top of the screen to the bottom, the way a surgeon reads a chart before she picks up anything sharp. Not fast, not slow, exactly as long as it takes. Behind her, Galvey's smile starts to do something at the edges. Not collapse, just thin. The way a smile thins when the person wearing it realizes the room has stopped laughing with them and started watching something else instead. He glances at his stopwatch. The number is moving. She is not. On the front row, Theo Brandt is gripping his notebook with both hands. Not writing, just gripping. His knuckles have gone the color of old paper, and his eyes are doing the same thing her eyes are doing. Moving up the screen, line by line, except his face is doing something hers isn't. His face is afraid. Because he knows what she's looking at. He has known for 14 months what she's looking at. He sat in this building for 14 months and did nothing. And now she is standing at that board with a marker in her hand, and the weight of those 14 months is sitting on his chest. And he is understanding, for the first time, with his whole body, rather than just his mind, what his silence actually cost. Not him, her. In row 3, Renata Ose has set down her pen. This is notable because Renata Ose has not set down her pen at a press event in 11 years. She takes notes the way other people breathe, automatically before she decides to. The pen is a reflex. It goes down when something is happening that she needs both eyes for, that her hands would only interrupt. Pen is down. She is watching. On the secondary monitor at the back of the hall, visible to anyone who turns around, the live stream counter ticks. 80 viewers, then 90, then 112. Someone at MIT has dropped the link into a department message channel with the words, "This is either nothing or something. Watch." 7 people click it immediately. One of them is a postdoctoral researcher who will, within the hour, forward it to her advisor with a single line of her own. You need to see this right now. Dara lifts the marker. She does not start at the bottom of the board. Does not approach the integral itself. She goes to the top, line 3. She circles it. One clean circle, the size of a fist, drawn with the confidence of someone who knew exactly where she was going before she stepped up here. Then she turns around. The room adjusts. Phones rise. Someone in the back stands slightly without realizing they've done it. Her voice is low, even. The voice of someone who is not performing confidence because they have never needed to perform it, only to suppress it. Professor Galvey, on line 3, you've assumed your function is continuous at the origin. It isn't. There's a removable discontinuity, but only after you redefine the limit from below. The room goes silent. Not polite silent, the other kind. The kind where everyone is suddenly using their whole body to listen. Where people stop shifting in their seats and stop checking their phones and stop doing the small unconscious things bodies do when they are only half present because all of them are fully present now. Galvey blinks once. Then he laughs, a good laugh, practiced. The laugh of a man who knows how to use laughter as a redirect, as a way of reframing a moment before anyone else can frame it for him. That's a notational convention. He pauses, and the pause is not casual. He does not know her name. He has worked 30 feet from this woman for years, and he does not know her name. It's standard in the field. It's a load-bearing assumption. The room reacts to those 4 words. Not loudly. A small shift. The almost inaudible sound of a crowd recalibrating. Even if that were true, if line 3 is wrong, every line after it inherits the error. Beat. Spotting an error is not a solution. The bet was for a closed form. He glances at the stopwatch with the studied casualness of a man who wants the room to look at the clock rather than the board. And the clock is running. I know. She turns back to the board. She writes a correction next to line 3. Doesn't erase his work. Writes beside it in the same space. The way a doctor writes a second opinion in a margin without crossing out the first. Here is what you missed. Here is what comes instead. In the front row, a graduate student whispers, "Oh my God." Just that. But it carries. The person next to him turns. The person behind that person. A ripple moving backward through the rows, the wave of a room beginning to understand that it did not know what it had come to see. In Boston, in a dorm room on the 4th floor of a building that smells permanently of instant noodles and good intentions, Caleb Weston is asleep. His phone is face up on the desk. 3 notifications have arrived in 4 minutes from 3 different people who all know his sister works at Harvard and have all sent this live stream link with variations of the same message. He is asleep. His phone buzzes again, twice in quick succession, then a 6th time from a different number with a message that reads, "Caleb, wake up, right now. I am not kidding." He rolls over, opens one eye, reads the message, opens the link. On his phone screen, small and bright in the dark of his room, is a woman standing at a whiteboard in what he recognizes, because he has been there twice, once for a tour, and once to bring her lunch on a shift that ran long, as Hall G at Harvard, his sister, on her work uniform, at a whiteboard, in front of what appears to be an enormous room full of people, all of whom are looking at her. Caleb Weston sits up, stares at his phone, sits on the edge of his bed for approximately 4 seconds, then slides off it onto the floor, because his legs have made the decision his brain hasn't caught up to yet, and stays there, cross-legged, phone in both hands, watching. In Atlanta, Grandma Odette is already awake. She is 82 years old and has not slept past 5 a.m. since 1987 and does not intend to start now. She is in her kitchen with her 2nd cup of tea when her phone rings. It is Caleb. She answers on the 2nd ring. He doesn't say hello. He just says, "Grandma, I need you to turn on your computer. The laptop I set up for you. Can you do that right now?" She can hear something in his voice. Not panic. The thing underneath panic that panic is covering. "Give me a minute," she says, and sets down her tea. Theo Brandt sees the move before anyone else does. She is setting up a polar transformation. He knows it from the way she repositioned the first term, the angle of it, the specific substitution she's chosen as her entry point. He wrote a single word in his notebook 9 months ago, in the margin next to his own transcription of her method from the photographs on his encrypted drive. Elegant. He wrote it then because there was no one to say it to. He says it now out loud, under his breath, to no one in particular, because the word needs somewhere to go. She's going polar. The grad student next to him looks up. What? Polar transformation. Theo's voice is barely above a whisper. She's going to use symmetry. From that angle? Watch, Theo says. Grad student watches, and then he watches with his mouth open. Alvial steps forward. Hold on. His voice has the controlled edge of a man trying to sound relaxed. That substitution doesn't preserve the boundary. He's right, technically. By his definition. By the definition that is printed in his textbook on page 247 and cited in 4 subsequent papers. Dara pauses. Doesn't turn around fully. Just turns her head. The way you turn towards someone when you're going to answer them, but the thing you're about to say doesn't require you to stop what you're doing. It does, she says. If you accept that the boundary I'm preserving isn't yours. Beat. Yours assumed continuity at 0. Mine doesn't have to. She underlines a small notation in the corner of the board. 3 marks. Almost invisible from the audience. Theo sees them. He has seen them before. On page 11 of the folder, in the margin, in pencil, barely larger than the surrounding text. He 1 word in his notebook in capitals. Oj, because he understood it on page 11. And he is understanding it again now. In real time. in front of a room that is starting to understand it too. And the understanding is completely different when you watch it happen on a board instead of reading it alone in a supply closet at 2 in the afternoon. 3 faculty members in the front row stand up, not dramatically, not in unison, one after another over the course of about 6 seconds, each independently making the same decision that sitting is no longer the right posture for what their bodies are trying to do. Renata Osi picks up her pen, then puts it back down, because what she is watching does not need to be written yet. Writing is for after. Writing is for when the thing is finished happening, and you need to make it legible to people who weren't in the room. Right now she is in the room, and she needs both eyes and all of her attention for that. She picks up her phone instead, starts recording, not for article, for herself, to have it later, to be able to watch it again in the specific way you rewatch something that was too large to absorb the first time. The live stream counter on the back wall monitor, 400 viewers, then 900, then a number that updates faster than she can read it. Galvi makes his move. It is a smart move, she will give him that. He walks to the panel table where Dr. Iris Tamblyn is sitting, and he positions himself, half toward her, half toward the room, with the practiced precision of a man who knows exactly how presence works in a space like this. Professor Tamblyn. Voice low but not low enough. As chair, I'd like formal verification of any claim made on this board. We're being live streamed. I will not have my work overturned by a performance. The word performance lands in the room like a stone dropped into still water. He is counting on something. She can see it in the set of his shoulders. He is counting on Dr. Iris Tamblyn, Princeton chair, 40 years, author of 6 books, a woman who has survived every room she has ever entered, to side with the institution, with precedent, with the thing that is already standing, with him. Dr. Tamblyn stands up. She walks past Galvi without looking at him. She walks to the board. She reads what Dara has written, all 5 full seconds. Her lips move slightly, not reciting, calculating. Then she turns to the room for the record. Her voice reaches the back row without effort, the voice of someone who has spent 4 decades ensuring she is heard in rooms that would have preferred her quieter. Miss Weston is correct about line 3. I would have caught this in a referee report. I am embarrassed I did not catch it on the slide. She pauses. I am verifying this in real time, in front of this room and this camera. The clock continues to run. She looks at Dara. Miss Weston, you have 91 seconds remaining. She walks back to her seat. The room makes a sound. Not a gasp, not applause. Something between them. Something that doesn't have a clean name. The sound of 180 people simultaneously recalibrating what they thought they understood about the next 90 seconds. About this morning. About the woman standing at the board. In Boston, Caleb is still on the floor. He doesn't know when he started crying. It wasn't a decision. It was just something his face started doing somewhere around the moment. A Princeton professor walked to the board and put her reputation behind a proof written in a supply closet folder. He doesn't wipe his face, he just watches. Dara lifts the marker. Professor Galvi, she says, still facing the board. I want to be clear about something. The room stills. I'm not going to claim what I'm about to do is original. The substitution I'm using was first sketched in a paper from 1962. The contour deformation is in any graduate complex analysis textbook. The residue calculation is standard. She pauses, then turns, just slightly, so the camera can catch the side of her face. None of this is hard. Another pause. What's hard is being willing to look at line 3. The room exhales, all of it, all at once, like a single organism that has been holding its breath but realizing it, and has just been given permission to stop. Galvi's smile is flat now, still technically present, but the thing that animated it from the inside is gone. What's left is the shape of a smile without its contents, a mask that has forgotten what it was put on to cover. Solve it, he says, and the voice is different, smaller, the register of a man who has just felt the ground shift and does not yet know how far it's going to move. Don't lecture me on humility. Solve the integral. Dara nods once, turns back to the board. Stopwatch, 1 minute 32 seconds. She lifts the marker, and she begins. Move 1, polar transformation. She rewrites the integrand fast clean, exactly as she has done at her kitchen table at 2 a.m. on a dozen different nights over 6 months, on inventory sheets and shift schedules and the backs of envelopes, until the motion of it became less like calculation and more like handwriting. Something her hand knows how to do, before her money finishes asking it to. Theo Brandt leans forward. Further, he is now 2 inches from the edge of his chair, and he doesn't notice because his entire attention is on the board and the small, tight handwriting moving across it. She's going polar, he says again to the grad student next to him, who by now doesn't need to be told, who is nodding with both hands at his temples, like someone trying to keep his head on straight. Move 2. The contour deformation. She draws a small loop in the Claxley plane, labels its lagoma, places it with precision. Not the precision of following a rule, but the precision of someone who has visualized this exact picture. So many times it occupies a specific and permanent address in her mind. Standard move, she said so. Textbook. But the placement. The placement is not in any textbook. The placement opens a door in Galvi's integral that has been there for 9 years. Sitting in every version of this equation, in every paper, in every lecture, in every textbook chapter, and that nobody thought to stand in front of and push. In the second row, a graduate student makes a sound, not quiet. The involuntary kind that happens when your body reacts before your manners do. That's beautiful, says someone else. Out loud. Not to anyone in particular, to the room, to the air, to the fact of it. The live stream counter on the back wall, 8,012. The number is moving so fast it looks like a malfunction. Galvi tries. He is a man who has recovered from difficult rooms before. He knows how to redirect attention, how to reframe a moment, how to make a crowd look where he wants them to look. He has been doing it for 9 years and he is good at it. Miss Weston, too loud, too sharp. The sound of someone trying to get back something already slipping. Even with the symmetry, the residual term is non-trivial. You don't have time. Dara does not turn around. I have time. The room cracks open, not laughter exactly. Something with more feeling in it than laughter. The release of a crowd that has been watching a particular power arrangement and has just heard it answered in 3 words by someone who was not supposed to answer it at all. The laugh that says she is not afraid of him, which means by some unspoken collective logic, maybe we don't have to be either. Galvi's neck goes red. He looks at the back wall, at the live stream counter. At the number that is now moving faster than numbers on a public screen are supposed to move. He can see his own face reflected in the monitor. He can see what it's doing. He is not able to make it stop doing it. He tries sarcasm. The last weapon left to him. Ladies and gentlemen, correctness is not the same as rigor. What we're witnessing is a performance. Entertaining, certainly. But when this is over, I'd ask all of you, Professor Galvi. Her voice quiet, no edge, just fact. Still not turning around. You're using my time. In the back row, the girl who was trying to be invisible is standing. She doesn't know when she stood up. She didn't decide to. It happened the way things happen when your body understands something before your mind has caught up to it. One moment she was in her seat, trying to take up as little space as possible, and the next she was on her feet with her notebook pressed to her chest, watching. Stopwatch. 42 seconds. 3 faculty members in the front row are standing. Dr. Tamblin has not blinked in 2 minutes. Theo Brandt has put his pen down because his hand is shaking too hard to write. He is looking at the board. At the handwriting he first saw on the floor of a supply closet 14 months ago, reproduced now in front of 200 people and 30,000 live stream viewers, moving without hesitation across a 12-foot screen. And he feels, sitting in that chair, with 14 months of silence on his chest, something that is not quite shame and not quite grief, and is actually both of them at the same time, sharing the same face. He should have said something. He knew. He had 92 pages of proof that she knew. Photographs, her margin notes in pencil. Check this again. Does this hold at infinity? And on the last page of the 6th proof, in letters slightly larger than the surrounding text. Yes, he knew. And he told himself he was protecting her. And he is only now sitting in a room watching her protect herself without him, understanding that the thing he was protecting was not her. It was his own uncertainty about what to do. Move 3. The hidden symmetry. She circles it, labels it, draws a small triangle in the corner as a flag. Her notation. Her system, the private shorthand of 10 years working alone. 4 more people stand in the middle rows, not in response to anything announced, just standing, because the thing happening at the board has exceeded the capacity of a seated posture. A single residue. She circles one term, writes its value beside it. Clean fraction. Exact. At a kind of exactness that means you found what you were looking for, rather than approximated your way to something nearby. The expression on the board begins to collapse, visibly. Line by line, term by term, the huge complex identity that has filled 12 feet of screen all morning starts to fold inward. Even someone watching the live stream from a kitchen table with no mathematics background can see it happening. Something large becoming small, something complicated becoming simple. The architecture of 9 years of intractability apart, like a structure whose load-bearing wall has finally been correctly identified and removed. Stopwatch, 18 seconds, and then Dara stops. She lowers the marker. She turns around, not to the integral, to the room, to the camera. Something the room can't quite name but can feel, because the feeling of it is why they've stopped moving. She says it the way you say something when you've decided the time for careful phrasing is over. I want to ask you something. The room is completely still. What year did you publish The Galvi Boundary? Galvi blinks, 2018, which is entirely, show them, not to Galvi, to Theo. Just his name and a look. The specific look of a woman who has just handed someone a door that she watched him build but never walked through and is telling him, without words, that this is the moment. Not a better moment later. This one, right now. The room swings toward Theo Brandt, 26 years old. Third-year PhD candidate, Galvi's own student, sitting in the front row with his pen down and his notebook closed, and 14 months of guilt that has just been offered, for the first time, a way out. He doesn't move for 2 full seconds. Then he opens the laptop. His hands are shaking. Everyone in the front 2 rows can see it. He types. He has the file ready. He has had the file ready since he couldn't sleep last night, since the 11 p.m. email, since he typed understood and lay down on his office couch and stared at the ceiling. I has been carrying this file for 14 months, and he has it ready, and he types in the secondary monitor at the side of the hall flickers. 2 versions of the same equation appear side by side. The published 2018 Galvi Boundary, and the version on the main board. The one Dara has been solving for the last 90 seconds. The room looks, and the room understands. The realization moves through the audience the way temperature moves through water. From the front backward, row by row, person by person. People physically lean back in their seats. A woman in the 4th row puts her hand over her mouth. A man in the 6th says, quietly, to the person beside him, "There's an extra constraint. There is an extra constraint, added sometime last night to the version on the main screen. Not present in the paper that has been cited over 400 times. A small bound on the imaginary axis. 4 characters. Easy to overlook if you don't know what you're looking for. Impossible to overlook if you've spent 6 months building a proof. Through exactly the door those 4 characters close. Amnada Ose lowers her phone very slowly. She looks at the 2 equations, then at Galvi. She writes 1 sentence in her notebook quickly, pressing hard, and puts her hand flat on top of it. Dr. Tamblyn stands up, slowly. The way you stand up when you are about to do something you cannot undo and you want to be certain before you do it. Preston. 1 word. And the particular weight of that 1 word is not in the word itself. It is in what she doesn't say after it. In the space she leaves. Because what follows Preston in this room, in front of this camera, with 2 versions of a published equation on 2 different screens, is so apparent that finishing the sentence would be an insult to the 180 people capable of finishing it themselves. Galvi says nothing. For the first time since he walked onto this stage, Preston Galvi says absolutely nothing. Professor Tamblyn, Dara's voice. Clear, steady. The voice of someone who has been waiting without knowing exactly how long or in exactly what form. For this, with your permission, original equation, the 2018 version. She pauses. 8 seconds is plenty. The room makes a sound, not a gasp. Deeper than that. The sound that a room full of people makes when they understand something simultaneously. When the understanding is not individual but collective. When 180 people breathe the same breath at the same moment. Dr. Tamblyn walks to the podium. She stops the stopwatch, picks up a marker, her own, from the panel table where she left it. Walks to the secondary monitor, erases the unauthorized constraint with 1 stroke, sets the marker down, turns to the room, the bet stands. She picks up the stopwatch. Original equation, 2 full minutes. Starting now, she presses the button. The number resets. Ticking down, Dara lifts her marker. And Galvi, standing in the center of his own colloquium, in the hall where he has lectured for 9 years, in front of the camera he arranged, in front of the journalists he invited, In front of the student whose silence he had relied on. In front of the woman whose work he has walked past for a decade. Stands there, watching, his hands at his sides. Not done. Because this is the thing about cornered men. They reach. Even when there is nowhere left to reach. Even when the reaching is the thing that will finally show the room exactly who they are. He reaches. He goes to the panel table and picks up a folder. Administrative. Label. The kind that comes from an office where someone has access to records they had no right to pull. He turns to face the room with it in his hand, and the performance voice is back, thinner now, forced, like a coat that no longer fits but is all that's left. Ladies and gentlemen, before we get carried away, let me put something on the record. He opens the folder. This woman's name is Dara Weston, MIT, Mathematics, 2013 to 2016. Height drew at age 20, no degree. Publications, pause, custodial staff at this university for 10 years. He looks up, looks at her, and what crosses his face is not contempt. It is worse than contempt. It is pity, deliberate, deployed. A kind of pity that is actually a weapon. The most efficient way to dismiss someone not by attacking them, but by making the room sorry for them first, before the room can be impressed by them. By turning a person's life into an illustration of limitation before they can turn it into anything else. I'm sure your life took the turns it had to, Miss Weston. But let's not pretend this is a fairy tale. He gestures at her. At the uniform. At the cart visible through the side door. Look at her. And then look at me. And tell me, with a straight face, that this is the outcome you'd expected from this morning. The room reacts. Two people stand up and leave, quietly, without announcement. The clean refusal of people who've decided they don't want to be in a room where that was just said. Not storming out, just leaving. The way you leave a table at a dinner party when the conversation becomes something you won't participate in. A woman in row 5 says, loud enough to carry 2 rows in every direction, "Excuse me." Renata Ose's hand has stopped moving. Theoden's staring at the floor, at his own hands, at the notebook he closed minutes ago, and has an Oreo drawing is already rising, and raises hand. One gesture. Small. Clear. Dr. Tamblin sees it, reads it correctly, sits back down. The room waits. Dara does not respond immediately. She looks at Galvi for a long moment. Long enough that the silence has texture to it. Long enough that several people in the audience shift in their seats not from discomfort but from the pressure of holding still while something important is being decided in front of them. Then she turns, not to Galvi, to the room, to the camera, the monitor on the back wall, where the live stream counter is doing something she can't read from this distance and doesn't need to. Professor Galvi has just told you why I left MIT. Her voice is level, not flat. Level, the difference matters. Flat is what a voice does when feeling has been removed from it. Level is what a voice does when feeling is fully present, and the person carrying it has decided that the present moment requires steadiness more than expression. He didn't tell you the rest. She pauses, not for effect, because the next sentence needs room. My mother had stage 4 ovarian cancer. My brother was 12 years old. I was 20. There was no one else. The room is completely still. I left because someone had to, and because the someone was me. She looks at a point just above the front row, a specific point that is not a person and is not the board and is not the camera. A point that anyone who has ever lost someone will recognize, because it is the particular place your eyes go when you are speaking to someone who is no longer in the room. I would do it again. 3 words. 3 words that cost something real, and the room can hear the cost in the silence that follows them. Now I'm going to finish his integral. She turns back to the board. In Boston, Caleb Weston is on the floor of his dorm room. He has been on the floor since approximately the moment Dr. Tomlin put her reputation behind his sister's proof. He did not make a decision to sit on the floor. His legs made it for him. He heard what Galvi said. He heard his sister's answer. He has heard his sister's voice his entire life. The 4 a.m. calls, the real breakfast reminders, the quiet I love you at the end of every conversation since he was 12 years old and didn't fully understand why she called so early or so often, or why she always sounded like she was checking something in addition to checking in. Has heard her voice in every register it owns. He has never heard it like that. He calls their grandmother. Grandma Odette answers on the second ring. She is already at her computer. Hylab set it up for her 2 years ago, and she uses it primarily to video call him and to read the news and to occasionally, with great suspicion, attempt online shopping. She does not know what a live stream is exactly, but she knows how to click a link. Caleb holds the phone up to the laptop screen. Grandma says. His voice is not steady. Look, Odette looks. She is quiet for a long moment on the screen. Her granddaughter is at a whiteboard in a green uniform with a marker in her hand and a room full of people watching her. Lord, Odette says, just that word. And the way that word contains everything when said by an 82-year-old woman who has lived long enough to understand that some moments are too large for other language. Lord, the stage, as Dr. Iris Tamlin stands up. Quietly, without announcement, she removes her jacket. The Princeton seal on the inside lining. She walks to the chair beside the podium, the speaker's chair, the chair that says placement alone this person belongs at the front of this room, and she drapes the jacket over the back of it. Princeton seal facing the audience. Then she walks down the steps and sits in the front row, like a student. The message requires no translation. That seat is yours, that board is yours, finish. In the back row, the girl who was trying to be invisible has moved to the center aisle. She doesn't know when she moved. She's halfway to the front, and she doesn't remember standing up or stepping out of her row, only that she needed to be closer to what is happening. And her feet agreed before she finished the thought. A grad student in the second row notices her, moves over without looking up from the board, pats the seat beside him. She sits. She does not look away from the stage. The stopwatch reads 1 minute 32. Dara lifts her marker. Move 1, polar transformation. Fast, clean, from memory. The way you do something you've practiced in every available quiet moment for 6 months. Move 2, auto deformation. Gamma. Placed where she has always placed it. In the position she found at 3 a.m. that opens the symmetry no one else found in 9 years. Move 3, the hidden symmetry. Circled, labeled, flagged with her notation. The 12-foot expression begins to collapse. Stotch, 42 seconds. Move 4, single residue, clean fraction, exact value. The integral folds inward, term by term. The way a long argument finally resolves into the thing it was always about. 18 seconds, she draws a line. Under the closed form, 1 line. It fits on 1 line, 0. She caps the marker. She turns around. The room does not move for 4 full seconds. 4 seconds of silence so complete. You can hear the projector fan and the HVAC and one person 3 rows back trying, unsuccessfully, to breathe quietly. 4 seconds of 180 people processing a single fact. They were in this room. They will tell people they were in this room. For years, for the rest of their lives, I was there. They will celebrate the back claps once, and Theo Brand starts clapping. He is crying openly, not quietly. Not in the careful, controlled way that might allow him to pretend he isn't. Just crying. The way you cry when you've been holding something for 14 months and someone else has finally put it down. And the relief of that is larger than you expected. And the grief of your own silence is also larger than you expected. And both of them are real and happening at the same time. The row stands. Then the row behind it. Then all of them. The noise is loud enough that the live stream audio clips. The specific distortion of a microphone that has reached the limit of what it can translate. Dr. Tamblin does not clap. She is at the board, hand pressed flat against the surface, against the closed form, against the single line where 9 years of impossible has just become 1 line of done. Her lips are moving. She is checking the mathematics herself, line by line, because that is what she does. Because that is who she is. Because the habit of verification is what separates the people who know from the people who believe. Galvey has not moved. He is standing in the center of his own colloquium, with the stopwatch hanging forgotten from his fingers, and the folder of her records at his side, and the 2 versions of his equation still visible on 2 different screens. He looks the way a building looks the moment after the power cuts. Same structure, same shape, but something essential removed from it. The thing that made it inhabited. Dara walks toward him. The room quiets. She stops 3 feet away. I want to say 3 things. He looks at her. He looks like a man who has just felt the earth shift beneath a structure he spent 9 years building and is only now understanding how deep the crack goes. First, you spent 9 years proving this couldn't be done. She tilts her head. You should have spent 30 seconds checking whether you were asking the right question. His jaw moves. Nothing comes out. Second, your boundary isn't intractable. A glance at the board. It's been answered wrongly by the same person in the same direction for 9 years. A sound moves through the audience. Involuntary. The small collective exhale of a room that has just heard something accurate said without decoration. She takes one step closer. Her voice drops. Not for theater. Just because what comes next belongs between the two of them, even if 200 people and 40,000 live stream viewers happen to be present for it. Third, the marriage bed. He goes still. I'm not holding you to it. Something flickers across his face. The beginning of relief. The expression of a man who thinks he is about to be let off. She closes that door, not because I lost. Pause. I didn't lose. Pause, because I don't marry men I don't respect. One beat, the exact right length. Long enough to land, short enough not to become a speech. And Professor, judging by how long you've been alone, I think you already know that's a longer list than mine. The room makes a sound that is not quite laughter, and not quite a gasp. It is the sound of people who recognize something, who have been in the presence of a man like this, worked under one, been sessed by one, been the person in the folder, been the person who was told their life explained their limits, and have just heard the thing that no one in that position is supposed, said plainly, without performance, by someone who is done performing. Anada Osi writes the words down, all of them, exactly. Then she puts her hand flat on top of the page. Dara turns back to the board. She picks up the eraser and she erases his work. Not her own, his, the original derivation. The lines above her correction that he spent 9 years defending and building a career on top of, and never once going back to the beginning to check. She wipes them in 2 long strokes, left to right. White, only her work remains as she sets the eraser down. She turns, she does not bow, does not smile for the cameras, does not look at Galvi again or at the counter on the back wall, or at any of the phones pointed at her face. She takes the marker from her jacket pocket, puts it in the pocket of her uniform, and she walks off the stage. She makes it to the foyer. That's as far as she gets. Not because someone stops her, because her body decides, independently and without consulting her, that this is far enough for now. That the person who has been holding herself perfectly still for 2 hours, shoulder square, voice level, hand steady, face doing exactly what she needed it to do and nothing it didn't, needs one moment to stop holding and just be. She stands in the foyer of the Harvard Science Center. Gray October lot through tall windows. The sound of the room behind her, muffled by 2 sets of doors, still audible, still rising. The particular sound of a crowd that has witnessed something and hasn't yet figured out what to do with the size of it. She looks at her hands. The marker is in her pocket. She doesn't know exactly when she put it there. Somewhere between the board and the door. Automatic. The way you pocket something small when you're not sure yet what the moment means and you're not ready to put it down. She breathes.
Twice.
Thinks, okay, just that word. Just that, okay. The footsteps come fast behind her, almost running. The rhythm of someone who decided to move before they finished deciding. She turns. Theo Brandt, 26 years old, eyes red, holding a folder the way you hold something you've been carrying too long and have finally decided to put down. He stops 3 feet away, out of breath in the way that has nothing to do with the distance he just covered. Miss Weston, she looks at him. He holds out the folder. She recognizes it in under a second. The label, the pencil, inventory Q3, her handwriting. The folder that lives under the bottom shelf of her cart in the supply closet on the 3rd floor and has lived there for years. She looks at the folder, looks at him. I found it 14 months ago, he says. His voice is unsteady in the way of someone trying to be accurate rather than eloquent. The fire safety inspection. I was clearing the closet on 3. I almost didn't open it. He swallows. I read all of it. All 92 pages. I went back every week. I have photographs, every page on an encrypted drive. I've had them for 14 months. She waits. I told myself I was protecting you, that if Galvi knew what was in there, I'd find a way to absorb it before you could protect it yourself. I kept telling myself I was waiting for the right moment. His voice drops. I know that's not good enough. The foyer is empty except for them. Gray light. The distant sound of the crowd through 2 closed doors. Dara looks at him for a long moment. Not with anger exactly. With something more complicated than anger. The expression of a woman who has just learned that her silence was not as complete as she believed. That the subplot she thought was private had been visited. That someone knew and carried that knowledge for 14 months and said nothing, which is both a relief and a wound simultaneously. And she is tired enough right now to feel both without managing either. No, she says. He nods. He knew. It wasn't. She takes the folder from him, opens it. 92 pages. Her handwriting. Small. Tight. The handwriting of someone who learned to write small because space was finite, and there was always more to say than room to say it. She closes it. Why today? She says, genuinely asking. Because last night, he sent me an email asking me to Janitor. He looks at the floor, and I did it. I typed understood, and I closed the laptop, and I lay down, and I couldn't sleep. And then you walked into that room, and then you looked at me. She considers this. That's a long way around to doing the right thing. Yes, he says, it is. She doesn't forgive him, not in words. Not standing in a foyer with the sound of a standing ovation still audible through two closed doors. But she doesn't close the door either. She puts the folder under her arm. Theo, he looks up. Thank you for the photographs. And she walks toward the exit. High in Atlanta, her grandma Odette is standing. This is notable because standing is not easy for her. 82 years old. Knees that have been filing complaints since 2019 and show no signs of reaching a resolution. She uses a cane on stairs, a wall on difficult days, and something that is not quite either of those things on all the others. A combination of habit and stubbornness that has served her for 8 decades, and which she sees no reason to abandon now. She is standing. In the hallway of the house she has lived in for 43 years. The wooden floor that creaks in the same place every time. The small table by the window that has held the same things for 30 years. A ceramic dish for keys, a Bible with a cracked spine and a framed photograph. Her daughter, Dara's mother, taken the summer of 2015. Laughing at something off camera, head thrown back. One hand raised the way she always raised it, when she was in the middle of making a point she believed in. She was always in the middle of making a point she believed in. Odette picks up the frame. Her hands are not as steady as they were, but they are steady enough for this. She turns the photograph toward the television screen, toward the laptop Caleb set up for her, where a woman in a green uniform is walking off a stage and sets it down carefully, so that her daughter can see what her child has done. Then she stands there with her hand on the frame for a moment. Lord, she says. Not a prayer exactly. Not an exclamation. The word that carries everything when other words aren't large enough. Pride and grief and the particular ache of watching someone you love carry something they were never supposed to carry, and carry it with more grace than the people who put it on them. Lord. In Boston, Caleb is still on the floor. Hai has been on the floor since Dr. Tamblin walked to the board and put her name behind his sister's proof. He did not choose the floor. His legs chose it for him, and he has not seen any reason to argue with them since. He is not crying quietly. He gave up on quiet. Somewhere around the moment, his sister looked at the camera and said, I would do it again. He is crying the way you cry when you realize you have fundamentally misunderstood someone you love. Not in a small way, in the way that changes the shape of everything you thought you knew about them. He knew she was smart. He has always known she was smart. But there is a distance between knowing someone is smart and watching them stand at a board in front of 200 people and dismantle 9 years of a famous man's career while also telling the truth about your mother. And Caleb Weston is only now, at 22 years old, sitting on a dorm room floor, crossing that distance. He calls Grandma Odette back. She answers immediately. He holds the phone up toward the laptop so she can hear. On the screen, the crowd is still stomping feet. His sister has just walked off the stage. She did it, Grandma, he says. His voice is not steady, and he doesn't try to make it steady. She did it. Odette is quiet for a moment. Baby, she's been doing it for 10 years. We just didn't know to look. Renata Osi comes through the doors moving fast, the walk of someone with a specific destination and a hard deadline and 11 years of experience knowing that both of those things wait for no one. She spots Dara in the foyer before Dara spots her. Stops, takes one breath, walks over. Ms. Weston. Dara turns. Boston Tribune. Press badge. Notebook. Pen uncapped from the last thing she wrote down, which was a line she covered with her hand. I'm filing tonight, front page. She pauses, with your permission. Dara looks at her. What's the headline? Renata glances at her notebook, at the sentence she wrote 30 minutes ago and pressed her hand flat against. For 10 years, she solved their problems in a supply closet. Harvard never asked her name. The foyer is very quiet. Dara is quiet for a moment, too. She thinks about Caleb. About 10 years of 4 a.m. calls and bank account checks, and the version of herself she has presented to him. capable, steady, fine. And the version that is now standing in a foyer with a folder under her arm and a marker in her pocket, and 40,000 strangers having watched do the thing she has been doing alone in a supply closet for a decade. She thinks about her mother. She thinks about the photograph in her wallet, folded at the creases, carried next to an MIT acceptance letter that has also been folded at the creases for 10 years. She nods. With one condition. Renata's pen moves to the page. Print the mathematics, not a summary, not a description. The actual proof. If people want to understand what happened in that room today, they should be able to see it. Renata looks up from the notebook. She has covered academia for 11 years. She has sat across from people who have done things genuinely worth writing about. She is looking at one of them right now. Done, she says. Behind the closed doors of Hall G, something is still happening. The crowd has not fully dispersed. Voices, movement, the particular sound of a room that has witnessed something large and is not yet ready to break into smaller conversations and go back to regular life. Dara can hear it through the doors. She doesn't go back in. Inside Hall G, Dr. Iris Tamblyn is standing at the board. The room has quieted to the specific murmur of people talking to each other in low voices, replaying what they saw, comparing what they noticed, doing the thing that humans do when they've shared an experience too large for one person to hold alone. Tamblyn is not talking to anyone. She is reading the board, all of it, from the circled line 3 to the closed form on the last line, reading it the way she reads everything, methodically, without rushing, with the attention of someone for whom verification is not a formality but a practice. Then she takes out her phone, calls a colleague at the journal, gets voicemail, hangs up, calls another. This one answers. I need to talk to you about a submission, she says. Tonight. It's urgent. She pauses, listening. No, I haven't submitted it yet. I'm standing in front of it right now. Another pause, because the author wrote it on a cleaning cart. She looks at the board, at the closed form on the last line, and it's the best thing I've seen in 9 years. She hangs up, takes a photograph of the board, walks off the stage. Galvey is gone. He left sometime in the last 10 minutes, while the room was still standing, while Theo Brandt was still crying and the live stream counter was still climbing. No statement. He simply was there and then was not, the way certain presences exit a room when the room has stopped being arranged around them. A stopwatch is still on the podium. Nobody picks it up. The story runs at 6 a.m. the next morning. For 10 years, she solved their problems in a supply closet. Harvard never asked her name. By Renata Osei, Boston Tribune. Page 1, with the mathematics not summarized, not described, not translated for a general audience. The actual closed form solution, typeset properly, taking up a column and a half of the front page of a Wednesday morning paper. The copy editor called Renata at midnight to ask if she was certain. I'm certain, Renata said. Nobody's going to read the math. Some people will, Renata said, and those are exactly the people I want to read it. She was right. By 7 a.m. the story has been shared 40,000 times. By noon it is in every major paper in the country. Not reprinted, written fresh. Because each paper wants its own version of what happened in Hall G on a Wednesday morning when a janitor walked onto a stage and did the thing the stage was built for. By Thursday evening, the live stream clip, the 90 seconds from the moment she picked up the marker to the moment she said it's a load-bearing assumption, has been viewed 14 million times. 14 million. And climbing. In the comments section of that clip, which is moving too fast for anyone to read in real time, one comment gets pinned by the channel moderator because it has been liked more than anything else posted that morning. Hot reads. She didn't prove she was smart. She proved she was always smart. Those are two completely different things. In Galvey's office, empty now, the door closed, a paper sign on the handle reading, "On leave," in the administrative font of a printed by someone else. Someone has taped a printout to the door. The screenshot from the live stream. The moment she is writing on the board, and he is standing behind her, watching. Someone else has added, below the image, in blue marker, line 3. Just that. No other commentary needed. Here's what happens to Preston Galvey. He receives an email from the dean at 6:17 a.m. on Wednesday. The language is formal in the way of something reviewed by 3 people in the legal department before it was sent. He is placed on administrative leave, pending a review of the modification to the published equation and a separate review of the conduct documented on the live stream recording, now available to approximately 14 million people. A Thursday seminar is canceled. His graduate courses are reassigned. 3 weeks later, he signs a public statement, posted on the Harvard Mathematics Department homepage. 4 paragraphs acknowledging the validity of Dara's proof, the modification of the published equation, and his conduct in Hall G. He signs it alone in his apartment at 11:43 p.m. on a Tuesday, sends it to an administrative email address, does not appear in person, does not speak to a camera, does not call anyone first. One paragraph he writes himself, the shortest one, 23 words. I was wrong about the boundary. I was wrong about her. I am sorry for what I made of both of those facts. He does not specify which one he's sorrier for. He does not say what he will do next. He does not mention the napkin. Renata runs a follow-up story the next morning. Here is what happens to Theo Brandt. He emails Dr. Tamblyn at 9 p.m. on Wednesday. Subject line, I need to tell you something. The email is long. He attaches 14 months of photographs. Every page of the folder time-stamped, in order, from the day he found them to the day he last checked. He does not ask for anything. He does not try to reframe his silence as protection. He just tells the truth, completely, in the plainest language he can manage. Dr. Tamblyn replies 6 a.m. Thursday. 4 sentences. Thank you for this. I've forwarded it to the relevant committee. You should speak with an advisor about your position here. You did the right thing eventually. That matters, even when it comes late. Which is, considering 14 months of photographs on an encrypted drive, probably more than he deserves and less than he needs. Which is, he decides, reading it 3 times at his desk, exactly right. Here is what happens to Dr. Iris Tamblyn. She submits Dara's proof to the Annals of Mathematics at 4 p.m. on Wednesday, 48 hours after the colloquium, because she spent the intervening time doing something she has not done in 20 years. Staying up through the night to check someone else's mathematics, with the focused attention she usually reserves for her own. It holds every line, every step. She requests expedited review. In the cover letter she writes, "I've verified this proof in real time under publishing scrutiny. I am submitting it with the full weight of professional reputation behind that confidence." One author listed, Dara Weston. She also writes a letter by hand. Her handwriting is genuinely bad, and she knows it. But she writes it by hand anyway, because the occasion requires something that a typed document cannot carry. 3 paragraphs. The first about the proof. The second about the fellowship at the Institute for Advanced Study in Princeton, which she has already made calls about, which she is formally offering as of the date of the letter. The third paragraph has nothing to do with mathematics. I spent 3 hours in Chicago in 2019 watching something unjust happen to a colleague. I said nothing. I have thought about it most weeks since. I cannot fix that silence. But I want you to know that when I had the chance to stand up at this time, I took it. And I took it because I remembered Chicago, and because I was tired of being the woman who watched. I hope that means something to you. Even a small thing. She seals the envelope. Mails it old-fashioned, with a stamp. Because some things should not travel through servers. Dara reads the letter on a Friday evening, at her kitchen table. Same table where she sat 6 months ago with the napkin and the cold coffee. Same chair. Same window with the same view of the street she has looked at for 10 years. Everything in the room the same, except the folder is on the table instead of under a shelf. And there is a letter from Princeton next to it. And the proof is in the annals, in review, with her name on it. Just her name. She reads Tamblyn's letter twice. The third paragraph 3 times. Then she folds it carefully and puts it in her wallet, not instead of the MIT acceptance letter. Next to it, 2 pieces of paper from 2 different moments. One representing a door that closed. One representing a door that opened. She sits at the table for a while without working, sitting, which she has not done at this table without a folder open in front of her, in longer than she can specifically remember. It feels strange at first, and then slowly it feels like something that might, with practice, become familiar, like rest. She calls Caleb at 4 a.m., not because she has to, because she wants to. Because the 4 a.m. call is not only a check-in. It is also, she realizes, a way of reaching for the only person in the world who has been with her for the whole of it. 3 rings. D. His voice is awake, which means he was already awake or became awake the moment he saw the screen, which amounts to the same thing. Hey, she says, it's 4 in the morning. I know. A pause. You okay? He says. And she thinks about how many times he has asked her that. In how many versions and registers over how many years? The 13-year-old version, sitting on a plastic hospital chair with his backpack still on because they'd come straight from school. The 17-year-old version, asking through her closed bedroom door on the anniversary of their mother's death, not quite sure what he was asking or what answer would help. The 22-year-old version on the phone from 40 minutes away, still asking, still checking, still doing the job he learned when he was too young to have been given it. You okay? The answer has always been some version of fine, because she was fine, because she built fine deliberately, carefully, from the foundation up, and it was real. It was not a lie. Fine was what she made of the situation she was in, and she made it genuinely. But fine and okay are not the same word, and she is only noticing that now. I think I might be better than okay, she says. A pause, longer than usual. Yeah. Caleb is quiet for a moment. She can hear him sitting up, the specific sound of shifting from lying to upright, and then the different quality of quiet that happens when someone is fully awake and choosing their next words. D. Yeah, she doesn't say anything yet. I mean, I knew you were smart. I've always known that. But I didn't know you had all of that, just as a folder, for 10 years, and I never, hey. He stops. You were 12, she says. And then you were 15, and then you were 18. You were doing exactly what you were supposed to do. I didn't tell you because I didn't know how to yet. And then I didn't tell you because it had been long enough that it felt like a whole separate conversation that I kept putting off. That's on me too, he says. I should have. We're okay, she says. Both of us. A pause. I watched the clip about 40 times, he says. I know. The part where you said about the marriage thing, Caleb. I was on the floor, I was already on the floor, D. She laughs. A real one. The kind that comes from somewhere lower than the chest. The kind she has not made in long enough that it sounds slightly different than she remembers. Like a word in a language you haven't spoken in years, but your mouth still knows. Go to sleep, she says. Real breakfast tomorrow. I'm checking. Yes, ma'am. A pause. D? Yeah. You were always allowed to be that person. The one at the board. You were always allowed. She is quiet for a moment. I know, she says. I don't think you did. She looks at the folder on the table, at the Princeton letters beside it, at the wallet on the counter with 2 folded pieces of paper in it, and her mother's photograph behind the transit card. I'm working on it, she says. Good enough, he says. And this time, for the first time in a long time, it actually is. 6 months later. Princeton, New Jersey. The Institute for Advanced Study, a small lecture hall. Nothing like Hall G. No 12-foot screen, no live stream counter, no auditorium built for the weight of performance. Just a room sized for thinking. 40 seats, most of them filled. Windows on the south wall. October light coming through at a low angle. The kind that makes everything look slightly more deliberate than it might otherwise. Dara Weston stands at the board. The same plain dark clothes she has always worn. Her glasses, same frames. Finally, a new left hinge, which took 9 months longer than it should have, because there was always something more pressing. The tape is gone. The frame stayed because she liked it, and she is allowed to keep the things she likes. Her hair in the same plain bun. The folder is on the desk, not under a shelf. Not labeled Inventory Q3. Not hidden inside anything, on the desk. Where things that are not shameful belong. She looks at the room. In the front row, 3 women with notebooks open. 2 graduate students from Princeton. 1 visiting researcher from North Carolina who emailed after the Tribune article and asked, carefully, if there was any chance she might see one of the other proofs. Any of them. She didn't specify which one. She just wanted to see one. Dara emailed back within the hour. Come to the lecture. Bring a notebook. In the second row, 2 more graduate students. Both women. Both carrying the focused quiet of people who chose to be here, which is a different quality of attention than the quiet of people who were sent. In the back row, in a northeastern hoodie, that has been through better days and carrying what appears to be an everything bagel in his left hand, is Caleb. He drove down from Boston this morning. He did not tell her he was coming. He appeared in the doorway 20 minutes before the lecture, bagel in hand with the expression of someone who has been planning a surprise and is extremely pleased that it worked. She had looked at him, then at the bagel. Real breakfast, he said, holding it up. She had put her hand over her mouth, not to hide a smile, to hold one in. Because she was about to stand in front of 40 people and she needed her face to be steady. And Caleb has never once in his life made her face easy to keep steady. She did not entirely succeed. He is sitting in the back row now with the remains of the big L, and an expression that is the simplest, most unguarded version of proud she has ever seen on another person. Oh, complexity in it. No history or grief mixed in. Just that's my sister. She is up there. She is exactly where she is supposed to be. Dr. Preston Galvey is not in this room. He is not in any room at Harvard right now. He is on leave. Indefinite. The Administrative Communications describes it as voluntary, and whether that is accurate depends entirely on how you define the word. I wrote one letter to Dr. Tamblin, one sentence. I was wrong about the problem. I was wrong about her. I am only equipped to apologize for one of them. Tamblin did not make the letter public. She filed it and moved on, which is its own kind of answer to the question of what it is worth. Dara looks at her room. She looks at each row, starting from the front, moving back, not rushing. Taking stock the way you walk a space before you begin, because understanding what you're actually dealing with is always the right first step. And then she sees in the third row from the back, in the corner seat by the window, a girl, 20, maybe 21, small in her chair, in the way of someone who has spent a long time in rooms where the default was not her. Notebook open but not yet written in. Pen held at the angle of someone not yet sure they have permission to use it. Shoulders slightly forward. Eyes on Dara with an expression that is not waiting to be impressed. It is waiting to find out whether she is allowed to be here. Dara knows that expression. She wore it for years. Hospital hallways and dorm corridors and supply closets, and at a kitchen table at 2 a.m. when she was the only person awake, and the mathematics was the loudest thing in the room. She wore it right up until the morning she walked into Hall G and decided to stop wearing it. Dara points, not at the most confident face, not at the full book, not at the hand already half raised, at the girl in the corner. The girl looks startled. The startlement of someone who has spent their entire life slightly to the left of where the pointing goes, who has built whole systems of behavior around the fact of not being chosen first, because it is easier to plan for the thing that always happens than to be surprised when it doesn't. Me, Doris. I'm just auditing. I know. Tell me your name anyway. A pause. The kind where someone is deciding how honest to be, how much space it is safe to take up. Mara, the girl says. Ma. Dara nods. Another pause. Longer. I saw the clip, Mara says finally. The Hall G one. Which part? Mara looks at the board, at the single word still written there in Dara's handwriting. Hello. The first word of the first lecture. The part where you erased his lines and left yours, she says. I kept watching that part. Why that part? Amara looks at her hands, then up. Because you didn't erase everything. Just the wrong parts. The room is very quiet. The particular quiet of 40 people understanding simultaneously that a 20-year-old has just said something true in a way she doesn't entirely know yet. And everyone else in the room already does. And both of those things are present at the same time. Hara looks at her for a moment. That's exactly right, she says. She turns to the board. She writes the first equation. Not the Galvey boundary, something new. The beginning of a proof she has not shown to anyone yet. Not Tamblin, not the Annals, not the 41,000 people who were watching a live stream counterclimb on a Wednesday morning. Her question. Not Galvey's, not the Fields. The one she has been turning over for 6 months in the quiet hours that used to belong to the folder and now belong to whatever comes next. The marker moves. And at the top of the board, before the first line of the proof, she writes one more thing, small in the corner, her notation. Her private shorthand, developed often in Muzzle with mathematics in rooms where no one was watching. Check line 3. She has written that at the top of every page for 10 years. Old habit. The best kind. Later at the end of the day, when the room has emptied and the October light has moved from its low morning angle, through gold and into the blue of early evening, Dara sits at her desk. She opens the top drawer, a frame, wood. $4 from a thrift store on Nassau Street 2 weeks after she arrived in Princeton. She wasn't looking for it. It was just there on a shelf near the door, and something about it. The size, the plainness, the price made her pick it up. Inside it, white, thick, restaurant quality. His handwriting. 3 lines of mathematics, then a cross out, a rewrite. Another cross out, another rewrite. The same mistake twice. Found and rejected and made again, in the same direction by a man who could not follow the error to where it actually went. She has been asked about the napkin, By Renata, who heard about it from Theo. By Caleb, once carefully on the phone. By Tamblyn, who asked in the understated way of someone who suspects she already knows the answer and wants to hear it said. She gives everyone the same answer. It's a reminder. And when they ask what of, she says that the difference between solving a problem and not solving it isn't always intelligence. Sometimes it's just whether you're willing to follow the error to where it actually goes. Whether you can look at the thing you built and go back to the beginning and ask if the beginning was right. She closes the drawer, puts on her jacket, picks up the folder, the real one, the one with her name on it now, filed at the annals, submitted under no other name but hers, and puts it in her bag. She turns off the light, walks out of the office, down the corridor, through the door, into the October evening, which is cold in the specific clean way of New Jersey in fall. The air carrying the smell of leaves and distance, and something that might be the future if you're willing to walk toward it. She puts her hand in her jacket pocket. The marker is there, same pocket, same marker, old habit. The kind you don't break because some habits are not things you do automatically. They are things you choose to keep because they remind you of who you were when you started. And who you were when you started matters even after everything else has changed. She walks through the gate, into the evening. No cart, no uniform, no folder under a shelf. Just her, and the equation she's been carrying her whole life. Finally in a room where she can write it on the board and leave it there.